Hello, thank you for joining me. Tonight, going to read Edgar Allan Poe, The Oblong Box, a story I had never read before. The Oblong Box. Some years ago, I engaged passage from Charleston, South Carolina to the city of New York in the fine packet ship Independence, Captain Hardy. We were to sail on the 15th of the month June, weather permitting, and on the 14th I went on board to arrange some matters in my stateroom. I found that we were to have a great many passengers, including a more than usual number of ladies. On the list were several of my acquaintances, and among other names, I was rejoiced to see that Mr. Cornelius Wyatt, a young artist for whom I entertained feelings of warm friendship. He had been with me, a fellow student at C University, where we were very much together. He was ordinary temperament of genius, and was a compound of misanthropy, sensibility, and enthusiasm. To these qualities he united the warmest and truest heart which ever beat in a human bosom. I observed that his name carded upon 3 staterooms, and upon referring to the list of passengers, I found that he had engaged passage for himself, wife, and 2 sisters, his own. The staterooms were sufficiently roomy, and each had 2 berths, one above the other. These berths, to be sure, were so exceedingly narrow as to be insufficient for more than one person. Still, I could not comprehend why there were 3 staterooms for these 4 persons. I was, just at that epoch, in one of these moody frames of mind which make a man abnormally inquisitive about trifles, and I confessed with shame that I buried myself in a variety of ill-bed and preposterous conjectures on this matter of the supernumerary stateroom. It was no business of mine, to be sure, but with nonetheless pertinacity did I occupy myself in attempts to resolve the enigma. At last I reached a conclusion which wrought in me great wonder why I had not arrived at it before. "It is a servant, of course," I said. "What a fool I am! Not sooner to have thought of so obvious a solution." And then again I prepared to list, but here I saw distinctly that no servant was to come with the party. Although, in fact, it had been the original design to bring one, for the words "and servant" had first been written and then overscored. "Oh, extra baggage, to be sure," I now said to myself. "Something he wishes not to be put in the hold, something to be kept under his own eye. Ah, I have it. A painting, and so this is what's been called a bargaining about with Nicolino, the Italian Jew." This idea satisfied me, and I dismissed my curiosity for the nonce. Wyatt's 2 sisters I knew very well, and most amiable and clever girls they were. His wife he had newly married, and I had not yet seen her. I had often talked about her in my presence. He had often talked about her in my presence, however, in his usual style of enthusiasm. He described her of surpassing beauty, wit, and accomplishment. I was therefore quite anxious to make her acquaintance. On the day in which I visited his ship, the 14th, Wyatt and party were also to visit, so the captain informed me, and I waited on board an hour longer than I had designed in hopes of being presented with the bride. But then an apology came. Mr. W. was a little indisposed and would decline coming on board until tomorrow at the hour of sailing. When the morrow had arrived, I was going from my hotel to the wharf when Captain Hardy met me and said that, owing to circumstance, a stupid but convenient phrase, he rather thought that Independence would not sail for a day or two, and when all was ready he would send up and let me know. This I thought strange, for there was a stiff southerly breeze, and that the circumstances were not forthcoming. Although I pumped for them with much perseverance, I had nothing to do but return home and digest my impatience at leisure. I did not receive the expected message from the captain for nearly a week. It came at length, however, and I immediately went on board. The ship was crowded with passengers, and everything was in the bustle attendant upon making sail. Wyatt's party arrived in about 10 minutes after myself. There were the 2 sisters, the bride, and the artist, the latter in one of his customary fits of moody misanthropy. I was too well used to these, however, to pay them little special attention. He did not even introduce me to his wife, this courtesy devolving perforce upon his sister, Mary Ann, a very sweet and intelligent girl who, in a few hurried words, made us acquainted. Mrs. White had been closely veiled, and when she raised her veil in acknowledging my bow, I confess that I was very profoundly astonished. I should have been much more so, however, had a long experience not advised me not to trust, with too implicit a reliance, the enthusiastic descriptions of my friend, the artist, when indulging in comments upon the loveliness of a woman. When beauty was a theme, I well knew with what faculty he soared into the regions of the purely ideal. The truth is, not I could not help regarding Mrs. White as a decidedly plain-looking woman. If not positive ugly, she was not, I think, very far from it. She was dressed, however, in exquisite taste, and then I had no doubt that she had captivated my friend's heart by the more enduring graces of the intellect and soul. She said very few words and passed at once into a stateroom with Mr. W. My old inquisitiveness had now returned. There was no servant. That was a settled point. I looked, therefore, for extra baggage, and to some delay a cart arrived at the wharf, with an oblong pine box, which was everything that seemed to be expected. Immediately upon its arrival, we made sail, and in a short time were safely over the bar and standing out to sea. The box in question was, I say, oblong. It was about 6 feet in length by 2.5 in breadth. I observed it attentively. I like to be precise. Now the shape was peculiar, and no sooner had I seen it than I took credit to myself for the accuracy of my guess. I had reached a conclusion. This will be remembered that the extra baggage of my friend, the artist, would prove to be the pictures, or at least a picture, for I knew he had been for several weeks in conference with Nicolino, and now here was a box, which, from its shape, could possibly contain nothing in the world but a copy of Leonardo's Last Supper, and a copy of this very Last Supper done by Rubini the Younger at Florence. I had not known for this time to be in the possession of Nicolino. This point, therefore, I considered as sufficiently settled. I chuckled excessively when I thought of my acumen. It was the first time I had known why to keep from me any of his artistical secrets. But here he evidently intended to steal a march upon me and smuggle a fine picture to New York, under my very nose, expecting me to know nothing of the matter. I resolved to quiz him well, now and hereafter. And we'll take a quick pause and continue on episode 2. Thank you.